Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia. This is our first post-spring game episode of JMU Sound Off, so a lot to discuss tonight. Wide-ranging discussion. We're going to actually do a recap looking back at the Coach for a Day experience. We're going to talk to the two winners, give us a little insight to what it was like to be a coach on the JMU staff. Then we're going to move on for a football alumni discussion. We're going to have Neil Wilkinson and Harry O'Kelly. And then finally, we're going to talk to the man behind Rocktown Graphics, who's going to give us a little insight into what it's been like to design graphics for some of our former players, some current players, as well as some graphics you might have seen associated with this podcast. And then, as always, we'll do our final thoughts. But as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, the Montpelier Collective, Skyline Financial Partners, Where's Woody, and a new sponsor that is officially joining us this week, the team from Talent Corp. So we're going to be telling you more about them as we go throughout the summer, but really excited to have all four of our sponsors on board. They allow us to bring the show to you each and every week, as well as allowing us to connect with some of the current student athletes that we've been able to help support as we've gone throughout the season. So with that, again, also thank you to our sponsors. With that, we'll bring in two of our co-hosts tonight. Taylor Atkins is in San Antonio for the day. So Steve Brown and Michael Evangelista, gentlemen, thanks for spending some of your Sunday with us. Want to go right around the horn just about, there's been a lot happening with, first of all, the AD hire now official. We all had the opportunity to meet Matt Rowan and get a chance to, first of all, just see him as a person, see how he interacted with our two new coaches that are also on staff, but also get to hear a little bit about his vision for JMU Athletics. I know there will be a press conference officially welcoming him to Harrisonburg this week. But I'll start with you, Steve. There have been a lot of discussion leading up to this hire about who we thought would be the hire, what kind of personality profile are we looking at, what kind of background. And I think a lot of us expected to see a existing AD, maybe not an assistant, just because that kind of matched the profile of a coach that Jeff Bourne looks for, is trying to find somebody who's done the job. Just your initial thoughts, and also we had a chance, you and I, to see Jeff Bourne's kind of going away ceremonies at the Montpelier Collective event. So it was a really nice connection to see him pass that torch to Matt Rowan in person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with Matt and his family. Got to spend some time with he and his wife last Friday night, and then on Saturday. It's in the Jeff Bourne model, or with the mold. He's going to hire somebody that's been an AD somewhere. Not really interested in hiring somebody that's been an assistant somewhere. And I think we learned our lesson from that, to be very frank, when we hired, Everett Withers. I mean, Everett did a great job in a lot of different ways, but he was an assistant. And I think, from that, I think Jeff learned, we're going to hire only head coaches coming in. And I think on the AD side, since we haven't done it in a long time, made sense, I think, to bring in somebody that had been a proven AD. So, very happy that Matt's on board and his family is on board. I'm wearing my Where's Woody hoodie. So if you guys want to get some really good stuff, this is a hoodie I picked up at the Duke Club golf tournament last Friday. One of the more comfortable hoodies that I have, or one of the, it's a wonderful, I guess it's a quarter zip. It's not really a hoodie, but it's great. So wanted to also give a shout out to the JMU lacrosse folks. Since we're chatting a little bit, yesterday they went down to ODU and beat the ever living snot out of ODU. I wish they'd have run it up more. I give them a lot of credit. That's why I'm not a coach, because if I was a coach, there is no way I'd have pulled my starters. I would have continued to score on them relentlessly. They beat them 18-9. They're 12-4, 5-1 in the conference. They play in the AAC semifinal on Thursday against Temple, and the championship is on May 4th. So there's only 4 teams that make this tournament. Bella yesterday had 5 goals. Bella Peterson, Maddie Epke had 4. They won the draw control 25-5. So if you don't know anything about lacrosse, I can tell you that's how you get the ball. So just think about if you had to jump the ball every time in basketball, they won it 25 times. ODU won it 5. So next Sunday, we're going to have Bella Peterson on, and we're going to have Caitlin Morgan. Both are attackers, and Caitlin is the JMU valedictorian. I don't know if you saw that in the sports this week, but not only is she wonderful in sports, she's also wonderful academically. So selection show next week for lacrosse is at 9:00 next week, but just wanted to at least let you guys know that we're going to have them on next week, which will be fun. So let me turn it over to Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Rowan a couple times last week, and the 3 things that really stuck out to me, not just his personality, I think he's a great fit. he is very much a JMU personality. I don't know how much I can explain that. Kind of like when we had Chesney come over, he just fits the mold of the school and of the personality there. But the three things that really stood out to me is, number one, you look at his background at EKU and even Nicholls State, corporate sponsorships has risen tremendously when he's at the helm. In addition to donor fundraising, not just total fundraising, but also the number of donors he's been able to increase as an athletic director at both stops. Number two, facilities and infrastructure. I think if you listen to his conversation with Dave Riggert, I think it was last week, he loves building things. At EKU, he was able to build infrastructure that was not there before. If anyone's ever been to Richmond, Kentucky, there's not much there right off 64 West, but he was able to build a sustainable program that's won in a variety of different ways. I think their basketball team's been pretty good. Their football team's been competitive. And last, and kind of the underrated piece, because we just went through it, you might remember EKU was in the OVC for a while, and then they did some transition. They moved to the Atlantic Sun. I believe the Atlantic Sun did a partnership with the WAC, I believe, and did their own little double team conference realignment piece. So he is very much, he knows the ins and outs of that. Not saying that JMU is going to be moving out of the Sun Belt anytime soon, but when you look at the landscape of college football and just college athletics, you want someone that's been through some of that ambiguity on that side. So really excited to see how he can transform and just kind of do things his way. That's obviously been doing well for him.
Guys, I want to ask you one other thing that was out there, and then we'll get to some of our guests. But there are a lot of discussion this week on multiple outlets. You had CBS Sports and The Athletic both discussing the possibility of a Group of 5 postseason tournament. That some options are talking about the possibility of the teams actually playing for a right to go be the G5 representative in the college football playoff. There's some discussion about having actually all of the Group of 5 conferences go under one banner, and even more of a focus on regionality. So you would have 8-team divisions that are hyper local, which would both reduce travel, but also increase rivalries in that. And then those division champions would play for the right to be the Group of 5 representative. There's discussion about these being private equity backed. And this is all happening now at the time where we have a permanent athletic director in place. And I think that's really critical. If JMU is going to have a seat at the table and be a part of these types of discussions, having that permanent leader in place was really vital. But this all happens with all the transfer portal and the movement, things that have really been rocking the Group of 5 landscape. Just any thoughts on that, Steve? I'll go to you first. Just that this was a big news item and one that I think we're going to hear about a lot over the weeks to come as this starts to kind of get flushed out, as it sounds like these Group of 5 programs don't want to wait for the P5 programs to decide this for them. They want to kind of dictate their own future.
Yeah, the hope is that's where we're going, because if you've got private equity money in it, then TV money follows the private equity money. And that'll allow us to boost up a really good G5 conference. I don't know about all the logistics, if that'll all work, but I know the money piece will be key. And if the money piece is key, then the collectives can also raise money. We need to continue to raise money to be able to keep these players, and to be able to, bottom line is keep the roster in place. And that's where I think this private equity money and the TV money will be key to keep them from going to the P5. Now, you're still going to lose guys to the P5, but if the NFL gets behind it, we make sure we get enough, folks looking at these guys, there won't be a huge reason, hopefully, to jump to the P5, but who knows? I mean, it's also fluid right now, but my hope is that we move in some sort of direction that stops some of the nonsense that's going on right now.
Michael, any thoughts?
Yeah, so going back to like this position of strength we've been alluding to the last couple of weeks, Matt Rowan's also part of a 40-member Division I council, so he represented the ASUN when he was there. So what that means is he's probably privy to some of this information already, right? He's got some influence there. He knows what's going on behind the scenes, which I think is advantageous for us. But also at the same time, like there's probably things happening that we don't know or we haven't seen or maybe hasn't made the headlines with that he might have his hands in terms of influencing, like I mentioned. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what the right answer is. I agree with Steve when it comes down to it. Dollars, speak louder than words, right? Like if we can make it equitable, but also really hone in on some of those regional rivalries like we have been in the Sun Belt, JMU is in a really good spot to come out on top.
Yeah, it definitely makes it even more important that we're in FBS when this conversation is happening, as opposed to still being in FCS, because now you're in one of these conferences. A conference is going to be poised to have a lot of power in this discussion. Is it was noted that the American and Sun Belt were really powerful players in these early discussions, and the concept, at least hypothetically, of being able to be even more connected to regional rivals, the possibility of an East Carolina, maybe a Navy, a Charlotte also being in your conference as well. That's exciting, and would at the very least take away the postseason component of anything. You're going to have one hell of a regular season that's going to have matchups each and every week. That's going to have a compelling story behind it. So definitely something to watch for. And we'll touch on some other things related to roster management and stuff as we go through our final thoughts at the end. But with that, we wanted to get to our first two guests. If you are not familiar, the Montpelier Collective hosted their Coach for a Day experience at the 2024 spring game. And we are fortunate enough to have the two coaches, the offensive and defensive coaches from that day, who got a bird's eye view of what it is like to be a coach for JMU football. We're going to bring them on now. Carson Long and Mr. Frank Payne. Guys, I had the pleasure of covering your Coach for a Day experience and getting to see firsthand just how inviting and welcoming JMU football was to having you in the building. It started before you actually even arrived, making sure you were geared up properly so you looked the part. I'm going to start with you, Frank. You've been a longtime supporter, longtime fan of this program. I don't know what you expected to experience when you went. First of all, bought a ticket for this raffle. Maybe just give a little insight into what the day was like for you, but also I know you told me firsthand that it really did blow away your expectations on multiple levels.
Yeah, 100%. First of all, thank you, Jonathan, for having me on today. Truly a pleasure. But the experience was once in a lifetime. It was unreal. What they did as far as the access, as far as how they treated us, how the coach was. Top notch, first class. It was, first of all, what you're doing is you're purchasing a ticket to have this experience to help us with the NIL money and to help JMU. So that was the first thought. Yes, winning was it was never expected, and I didn't know what to expect after I won. And what Carson and I both got was unreal. Coach calling the plays, giving the speech, total access into the locker rooms. Coach Kennedy was great, helping him. And then, as far as being with him and so forth, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And hopefully other people will now try to get this experience next year.
And Carson, take fans inside just the experience of you got a chance to actually, before you ever got on the field to call the plays, to be in the locker room, to hear some of the pregame prep talks. You also had a chance to take warm-ups with the team and actually interact with your coach, the position coach on defense, Lyle Hemphill, and you guys were on the sidelines going over plays together. You were talking strategy. That in itself had to be a pretty amazing experience, to have more than just here's a play sheet, point to a number. They really made you feel like you integrated into the coaching staff in a lot of different ways.
Thank you. It was an amazing experience. Once an absolutely great time with the guys on the sideline. Couldn't ask for a better day for everybody to come out and these fans cheer on our team, our JMU Dukes. It was great. I loved it.
And then for Frank and Carson, I'm going to ask you both the same question. One of my favorite moments before you ever got to call plays, you actually got to each do kind of like a halftime pep talk in the locker room. I know, Frank, you were over with the offensive coaches and the quarterbacks. There was a really nice moment where you were talking about you wanted to throw the ball, and they were like, "Hey, we like that too." But tell us a little bit about what that experience is like, just being in there at halftime. And I thought that was one of the more enjoyable moments. And then Carson, you were actually getting to lead a dance in the locker room with some of the players, make sure they were hyped up. And that's before you guys hit the tunnel, and it really ramped up.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Chesney took me over to Coach Kennedy, and we sat with the quarterbacks. I think there was 5 of them, and I had spoken to the offensive line before I came in at halftime, and they're like, "Yeah, don't run the ball, but pass the ball. That way we don't have to. It's hot. They want to drive the players back." So they all the offensive linemen wanted to throw the ball. So we started out with throwing the ball, and then I asked if it was okay to do a double pass on the 15-yard line, our 15-yard line. And they said, of course it was. So that was one of the plays you saw that was successful. One of the few, but it was end of the day, it was a great time.
Yeah, I had an absolutely great time spending those moments with the defensive guys. It was a great time, and being able to give them that energy to go out with the field with me and be able to be with the coaches and call the plays to, get them hype and, going through the quarters in the second half. It was a great time. So they loved it.
And then my last question is just Carson, take us through the dance that you were doing in both the locker room and then in the tunnel. That really seemed to get them pretty fired up. I know you were doing kind of the Dirty Bird, the Ray Lewis dance that he made popular. The players really seemed to rally around that. And Frank, your speech in the tunnel was pretty legendary. If anybody wants to kind of check out a behind the scenes video, we have one on our YouTube page at JMU Sound Off. And you can hear firsthand what both of them said in the tunnle. But we'll start with you, Frank. What was your motivation and what was your thought process behind the speech? And then Carson, take us through the dance.
I didn't know really what to say. It was, I guess I thought of it, made it up, tried to get them fired up, just to have fun with them. The players were in 100% on this. They were great. The whole coaching staff, met the new AD. I mean, the full access was incredible. Way more than I ever could imagine, especially giving the speech and calling the plays and then keep calling the plays. First of all, it's very fast when you're calling plays. They're waiting on me. They didn't stop. They didn't go in and start doing it. They relied on me to call the plays. So, I struggled a little bit with that because it's so fast. People don't understand that. But in the day, great experience. I hope everybody has a chance to purchase tickets next year. You're only helping us as JMU alumni, as JMU fans, as JMU donors. This all goes in NIL money, and we need that money to keep these players. So please, next year, hopefully, people watching this will buy a lot of tickets.
Yes, I just had to come up with a dance to get them, excited. Like going to your question, Jonathan, and they got with it real quick and enjoyed it. They told me to come up with a phrase to get them excited, and I said heavy candy competition. That's what they wanted me to say, and I said, is that what's going to get you ready to get some stops on the defense? I said, absolutely, it's going to get some stops, and then and they agreed with it. And so I went on and said my speech and did my Ray Lewis dance. And then it was a special day, and everything was just great for the Dukes fans. And hopefully this keeps going on in years to come. Keep purchasing those tickets, like Frank said, and try to get yourself to enjoy this experience. It's a great, wonderful atmosphere, environment. So yeah, that's it.
Well, what was the most stressful part? I'll start with Frank and then ask you the same thing, Karsten. I mean, what was the most stressful part of being on the sidelines and calling those plays for you guys?
Calling the right play, I guess. One of them. The fans are obviously watching. You want it to be exciting. So hats off to Coach Kennedy and what they do over there, because it is when we're trying to get turbo, which is fast, which I learned also. It was stressful trying to get all the plays, together and in on time too, because they were waiting for me to call plays. And didn't realize it'd be all this experience. To be honest with you, it was definitely a fun time out there.
Yeah, I think my most strategy to that question is I had to think real quick and make sure I get the right play so I could win the play against Frank's offense. And so it was it was a really fun time, and I enjoyed getting those 3 sacks against him in that one first drive. So
that was great.
That was a big part of it.
So as coaches for the day, well, did you guys get to go in and raid the equipment room? Because you are coaches for the day, so you should have picked up tons of swag. Did you guys pick up a bunch of stuff?
I think we got a hat and a shirt. So
we got a hat and a shirt, yes.
Oh, come on, you're coach for the day. You can go to the equipment manager and say, hey, I want this and I want that. You could have gotten all kinds of stuff and left with like a big box of stuff. That would have been fun.
Well, I'll enter it next year and see if I do that if I win.
So Steve kind of like alluded to what I was going to ask about in terms of, in the moment when you guys are calling plays, because it was awesome, right? You had the gear, you had the visor, they gave you guys like the headset and everything. So walk us through, talk to us, we don't know anything about what it looks like to be in the moment. Can you guys hear other coaches talking to you in the headset? Was there tons of voices? What did that look like?
Yeah, 100%. Everyone was talking in the headset to you, and they were, you got to go. So we had a couple plays started out, and then after that, the situational changed. Where you were on the field, what hash mark you were on, all that stuff. It was legit, 100% legit. So and we were trying to we were trying to make the right calls, and I was trying not to take away from the guys and what was going on there too. But they took it serious. I mean, I took it serious. I wanted to see us be successful and call the right play. And I mean, it was just a great time, Michael. It just, one of those things I'll never forget ever.
So awesome.
And it's just the way the coaches were, how they treated it and how they embraced this thing was great. I mean, it was 100%. They were behind us, and they want us to have the experience of a lifetime, and that's what they gave us, 100%.
You could hear them in the mic, and it was just outstanding. I mean, I couldn't believe how it felt like I was an actual coach out there, like I was coaching JMU football, like a actual game. Like it felt real, and I was passionate about every play call I made, because I want to make sure that defense felt like we were going to get the play done. And it was just awesome, and it was a great day, and I will never forget it.
That's so cool. So I think for all of us that play a little Monday morning quarterback, I know I'm certainly a victim of that too. Just remember, when you're calling plays or you're like, oh my gosh, why did we run the ball? Sometimes it's hard to see when you're 3rd and 2 versus 3rd and 9. You got to make a split decision, right? So so cool that you guys get to do that. Real quick, did you guys have a favorite play that you called, both on offense and defense, that you really liked?
I of course I called it the Cheatham. I was trying to do a fake bubble screen to hit the tight end down the middle for a touchdown in memory of Dean Cheatham, of course. So that was what I was trying to play, and they had it. They called it. They ran it earlier, called Soda or something. So yeah, I came in prepared to call my own plays too if I needed to, but they were well organized, and they did have 9 plays already planned out. And like I said, I used those in the first drive, so I was using his play call sheet. So, but yeah, it's fast. I can tell you that much. It is fast. See, all the Monday morning quarterbacks, you don't know what it's like to experience that, and it's I tell you, it's hats off to them, and hats off to them to give them that access again. I really appreciate it. So, and thank you, Jonathan. That was a great video. Well done video.
Yeah, my favorite play was Cannon. I used that 3 times. The guys in the box say, keep using it, because it was working. And I stuck to my plan and tried to make sure those guys really kept getting those plays to my side, in my way. And that's how I did. And so I kept doing it, and it worked. And, that drive went my way, and the whole defense was getting after it. It was a good time,
Well, guys, what was so great about that day, and this is how we'll wrap, is Coach Chesney promised us when he took the job that he was going to open up this program. We didn't know what that was going to look like, and I think this is just one example compared when you add it to what he's done with the coaching clinics, bringing high school coaches into the program, his increased access to the media that we've seen over the weeks to come, as well as the community support that is happening now with this program going out to elementary schools, supporting groups like the Red Cross and the Boys and Girls Club. They mean it when they say they want this to be Harrisonburg's team. They want this to be Virginia's team, and they want fans to be able to touch it and to be physically a part of it. And I think that's going to pay dividends down the road. But also, we always say in this program that college sports is about way more than what happens on the field in terms of wins and losses. It's about memories. It's about that connection that you have with your fellow alums as well as other grads. And this is just the latest example of what I think is this new era of JMU athletics and JMU football is going to be. We're all going to be intimately involved in its success, but also have a chance to experience it in a deeper and more meaningful way. So we just want to say right off the bat, thank you to Matt Transu. Thank you to Cliff Wood. And the team at the Montpelier Collective for Jake Coons, who I know had an intimate role in making this happen, in addition to the coaches, Lyle Hemphill, and Coach Kennedy, and the players, as you said, who really embraced this from the first moment and to the last. And then they were kind of buzzing in the locker room about how it was one of the more enjoyable experiences. And I already heard Coach Chesney talking about some ideas he has for next year to make it that much more special. So congrats, Frank. Congrats, Carson, for being a part of it. And we'll see you guys down the road. And as always, go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
All right. And with that, we're going to move on to our second segment of the evening. We're going to have a discussion now with some football alums about a couple of topics related to the program, but we're going to start with a look back at the JMU Football Alumni Golf Tournament that happened the weekend of the spring game. With that, we're going to bring on Neil Wilkinson and Harry O'Kelly, a man that needs no introduction. Guys, thanks for taking the time out of your Sunday to talk with us.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Hey, Neil, I'm gonna start with you real quick. Can you give fans who may not be familiar a little bit of an insight into what the football alumni group is all about, when it started, and how it helps to continue to make not only connections to the past in terms of the bond and the brotherhood that exists between former players, regardless of when they played, but the connection that it allows you to have with the current roster, and why you think that's important.
Yeah, thanks. This is a long time coming, really. I think it gets lost on some people what a youthful football program we have. I mean, we just celebrated a few years ago our 50th anniversary, and that seems like a long time. But, as an example, Delaware started football in 1890. There's a lot of major programs that are, 100, 150 years old. So, having a program that started in 1972, your alumni are still relatively young. I'm one of the older ones, and I'm not quite 60 yet. But it was important to, we've always the Duke Club and JMU as a university has always treated athletics in parity and equally, which is perfectly fine. And I agree with that in most cases. But, we started, I guess, the first alumni football golf outing was under Mickey Matthews, I believe. And that's, going quite a ways back. And over the years, it was successful. And then at some point, and I don't know exactly when, our outing was folded into the Duke Club outing. And then it kind of just lost steam. And I think it didn't have its own identity. And the reality is, players want to hear from their teammates. Players want to, hear from players. And we kind of recognized that, a group of us, and said, we need to reach out to our group of guys. And the other piece is it's generational. One of the great things that came out of last Friday was guys like me who played in the mid 80s. I had the opportunity to meet guys like Harry and guys in his era and everything in between. And that's kind of the positive aspect, is making a connection, because you stay in touch with the guys that you played with, but you don't necessarily stay in touch with the program. And what we're trying to build with the JMU Alumni Football Club, and then the golf outing is just a small part of that, is an engagement, a long-term engagement with JMU football alumni players, and build a one-stop shop, if you will. We've got a website up now. We're going to host everything through the website and be able to reach out to players that, in many cases, we're looking at, I think, over 2,000 JMU alumni football players since inception. That's a lot of guys. And there's many guys that have never been back to the university to see a football game or be back at all since they graduated, which, really isn't acceptable to me. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is link all of the players over the years under one roof, and then be able to deliver kind of some services and things, and get the guys right as they're coming out. Because the reality is, we're not doing this for us, the older guys. We really won't be around long enough to see the benefits of the growth of what we're trying to build. But it's for the guys who are going to graduate this next season and the next season, because, you put your entire life into football. For instance, I started when I was 7 and played till I was 26. There's a huge void in your life and in your gut when the day comes that you can no longer play football. And you want to have that connection to the game and to your alma mater. And we needed to build something to create that connection.
And Harry, as a younger football alum who has maintained a close connection to your former teammates, but also has maintained an ability to kind of be a voice for JMU football and JMU athletics on a couple of different occasions, it was great to see. We had a 10 out there for JMU Sound Off interviewing Mickey Matthews, but we got a chance to watch a little bit of the interactions. And it was really great to see you interacting with some football alums who came decades before your time, really not only with JMU football, but decades before you might have even been born. Just speak to what that has meant to you, especially in this era when now the transfer portal is a piece where, player movement is going to become more frequent. I know this bond is important to you, and it's something you wanted to really speak to tonight, that it's special, and it's something that's going to be unique for you in life, regardless of where you go from this point on.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the coolest thing about it. You got all these guys who wore the same uniform years and years before me, before I was even born. And just to have the brotherhood that we have, we're able to just chat it up like we're in a locker room all at the same time, but we're not. And that's speaking on the Harrisonburg is like my home away from home, and the football family is like my family here in the States. And I know that wherever I am in life, I can always come back to Harrisonburg and it'll just be like home again. Which, I feel bad for the guys that do end up, they get more money, they want to leave, they want to go somewhere else, that's gone. It's, you don't have that anymore. It's you chose something else, and, that's their decision. Good luck to everyone that does that. But, for me, it's special because I can always come back, and I know I've always got a family here.
So Neil, I just had a quick question for you. So I had an opportunity to be on the sideline for the spring game, cross an item off my bucket list when I got to throw the football around with Mr. Harry O'Kelly over here. That was a lot of fun. But I saw guys like Adam Smith, Jordan Brown, Blaine Stewart, who's now the tight ends coach at West Virginia, tons of awesome football alum on the sidelines, former champions. Tell us a little bit about how that dynamic has changed over the years in terms of sort of reigniting the Football Alum Association, getting those players back on campus and getting them involved. I know that's a passionate, that's a passionate piece of yours and something you want to see, continue to grow.
Yeah, I think part of it was just the kind of, we didn't have a mechanism, the only thing we were doing, the school was doing, was through the Duke Club. And it was kind of it was focused on fundraising. And I made a point a long time ago. I said, every human being, forget about football or JMU, but when you get solicited for something, you want to feel like you're connected to whatever people are asking you to give, and to make a connection on the money, you want to be close to it. Originally, when I first graduated, if you gave money to the athletic program, you could not earmark it for any sport. I was unable to give money to the football program. It went into the general fund and it was dispersed, equally, which again is fine. And I think it's important that we support all the sports there. But the reality is, what happens is you don't get a lot of, the affinity for sports, and the affection we have for our own sport outweighs the affection we have, for the overall athletic program. So we needed to, connect with these guys and offer them something before we, ask them to give money. And so the program we're creating now, the JM Football Athletic Club, which will be a 501c3 charitable organization, that's just a place it's going to be like it's kind of a shopping place. It's where you would go if you want to know anything or connected to football. And it'll only be accessible to alumni football players. And we defined, and what Harry said about guys going into the portal and leaving, we took a hard line on eligibility on the club. It's only for players who end their eligibility at James Madison University. So maybe you got hurt after 2 years. As long as you ended your football eligibility at James Madison University, you are an alumni JMU football player for life. So building this is also a way to hopefully over time help keep these guys here, show them that there's something after football at JMU that they can be part of, and that's what we're trying to build. And I think that's a big push on what we're doing.
That's so awesome. I think you kind of touched on it earlier, right? The program's only so many years old. I think when John and Steve interviewed Mickey Matthews last week, he mentioned he graduated from West Texas State in 1972, and the oldest football player at JMU is Mickey's age. And
right.
It's something, it's a new dynamic. Like you said, Delaware, they've been around for 150 years. We don't have that, yet here we are today. So I love the work you're doing. Let us know how we can support you guys. Super cool to just see all the players come back, especially those national champions. Really awesome to see that. Harry, a little bit more lighthearted question for you. You got to hang out with Coach Chesney on the field. Tell us what you think about Coach. Walk us through his personality. I feel like you guys were vibing on the field.
He's awesome. I mean, he's that's just such a great fit for the program. It's exactly what I think JMU needed. It's a refreshment of energy. The players seem to all love him. He was welcoming. He even had the football arm down on the sidelines. That's kind of been gone in years to past. We really felt like we were welcomed in, and that was I've met him briefly on Friday at the golf outing, which was awesome as well. He brought some players out and all the coaching staff out to the football golf tournament. He even spoke a few words, which was so good. But yeah, we had some fun out there on the field. I lost for words. It was a great time, and I hope he didn't mind calling him Bobby. But if they put a microphone in my hand, I guess he's probably been warned.
I thought it was great. Let me ask you guys, I guess, about the tournament. So next year, I know you had the tournament on the same day as the Duke Club, but this will be the last year for that. Next year, I believe you guys will continue your tournament on the Friday before the spring game. The Duke Club's going to move their tournament to the fall. Is that right?
Okay, it's correct. Yeah, and that's a
Good.
big deal.
No, I think it makes a lot more sense for both of you, because the spring game part of that, it should be celebrating the football alumni group anyway, and the current players as well. And not that the Duke Club doesn't. So I'm not saying that, but I think it makes more sense to put everything into your bucket on that Friday. We'll be back there again next year, broadcasting, and we may just get in a cart and just ride around and do interviews, unless Mickey grabs the microphone and goes for.
I think we lost Steve, but that's like Gooch on the internet. Guys, one last thing before we'll see if we can get Steve back. What would be your message, just high level though, to alums who haven't reconnected with this group, and why that is so critically important to the sustained success of this program, and the impact that you're all can have on helping to grow this brand and the connection it has to making it successful in the future, especially in this era where increased investment is so important?
Well, I would say simply there's a term, you can't get the juice without the squeeze. Everybody gets to enjoy the success that we've had, and it's been tremendous. The college game days, the 11, 12 win seasons. I mean, in the last 5, 10 years, national championships. Everyone equally gets to celebrate that, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It only happens with the support of ex-players, donors, fans. So you can't have it both ways. If you want to say you're a JMU fan, and you're a JMU alumni especially, then you have to participate in any way you can. We're not asking for huge money from people. We understand that there is, a continuum by age and demographics of who has the ability to give more than others. We get that. But you have to show that you're supporting this more than by just being a fan. We need your help financially.
I mean, you can always give something. I guess that's we just saw the video during the Coach for the Day, and you saw the locker room. Well, this is the 10th year of the Alpha Dogs. So we started this in 2014, and you can see the change that happened in the program beginning in 2014 and on. Not just because of that, it's because a lot of the former players give back in a lot of different ways. And I want to ask you, Neil, about networking. Talk about how you can help, the former players in terms of job preparation, interview skills, even getting different jobs once they're out. Just talk about kind of that network that you have put together with the 2,000 alums.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. It's a lot of what we've talked about in building the club out is non-athletic, really focused. It's more, looking forward after life after football kind of thing. So one of the things we're going to do, for instance, is on the Friday night after the golf outing before the spring game, we're going to host a senior dinner and celebrate the outgoing seniors on the football program. And that becomes a point of indoctrination. We can talk to them a little bit about the football club, what their role as an alumni, will be or should be in our minds. And then start that communication, that dialogue, that connection right there. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to create a mentorship program within the club, and working with the coaching staff, have individuals. Every player comes from a different walk of life. They don't all have the same support system, the same family, makeup as everybody else. Every kid needs help, somebody that they can talk to, somebody they can go to. And as you know, if you played, you don't want to, your coach is not always the right person to do that, because you don't want to share or show vulnerability maybe to a coach or an administrator. So we want to have that mentorship program. We also want a career building. We're going to create a career network by type of job. So you go in and click finance. My name will be one of many that are in that field. sales, marketing, and so on, that you can then reach out after your playing days and connect with an alumni football player who has had some success in that area that you were interested in going into. So it's going to be holistic. It really is. It's going to be a clearinghouse for everything JMU football related, currently and after football.
And Harry, have you been able to use some of that with some of the guys you've met in terms of the network?
Absolutely. That's been one of the biggest helps for me coming out of JMU as an international. The football alum have opened up a lot of doors for me, and I'm because of the Cheathams, I am where I am. That's for instance an example of that. But there's just all these opportunities all the time, and I try and preach that to guys on the team now who ask me, like, Harry, what should I do after work, after school's done? I say, reach out to more football alum. You know, you want to be in this sort of field, I can help you. I can help introduce you to them. I think that's probably one of the most powerful tools that is going to be accessible to the football players going forward.
No, I think it's a great idea. The other thing I was going to ask you guys about, there's other schools out there. When I visited Arkansas State last year to go to that game, they have a suite just for football players, former football players. It was right below the suite we were in the end zone. It's not prime real estate, but so what? It's still a suite. I think App State does something similar to that. Is there any talk about you guys getting with the new AD and just talking about, hey, how can we, I know there's a tailgate, but if you're really going to integrate with these guys before you ask the former players for money, you got to bring them back to a game and get them in the stadium before you hit them up for money. And then once they see what it's all about, I think you got a better shot then to be able to do some fundraising. Is there anything about that with the new AD maybe talking about doing that?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. We have talked about it internally. We haven't talked to the new AD about it yet, but it's funny. When we met the AD, I think, Steve, you were there for the Alpha Dog breakfast last week. I asked him, I said, I know this is a tough question. You don't have to answer it if you don't have an answer, but what's your first priority as the new AD here? And he pointed across to the opposite side of the stadium, and he goes, that. So, and over on that side of the stadium is, there's a common suite that is basically sold game by game that anybody can purchase. It's not a, corporate suite. And we've talked about for sure wanting to secure that until such time as, the other side of the stadium is built out. So that for now, the group tailgate, which was a huge success last Friday, Harry knows, was tremendous. We got everybody, because we were all over the place in different lots and different spaces. And now we've got a place that everybody knows is designated in F lot as the football alumni tailgate. But we'd love to have a place within the stadium at some point for sure.
Harry, I know you're going to come back anyway, but does that help when all the alums are kind of in one spot, even from a networking standpoint, just to have everybody in that one spot? And if you guys haven't seen it in F lot, people that are listening, you can't miss it. They got a massive trailer that's a bar, and it's like 8 spots long. They even have tables in there because it's so daggone big. You can't miss this thing, and it's phenomenal to see. And I'm assuming Harry and your guys, I saw you guys there on Saturday. I mean, good God Almighty, it was like a regular game day on Saturday. I guess you guys have used that networking availability and just the connection part, even if you're not, looking for a job, just the fact that you get to know these guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant. We all just stand around drinking water.
Water. Yeah, you had a lot of water. Yeah, I saw your water.
Yeah, a big fan of water. But yeah, no, they're doing a great job there, setting up with that tailgate, and it's brilliant. And it's so cool just to be able to. I mean, I do a lot of wandering, as you guys know, as it is. But to have that little central spot right there, it's pretty cool to come back to.
It's just amazing that your water bottles look a little bit like Fireball, but there's some creative marketing out there, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us tonight. And I just want to say we thank every former player, because it's because of your contributions and your commitment to the program that we have something to talk about. The same applies to the current players who watch this show. We always say thank you, because we know that during your time as a player, you missed out on certain things that the average student athlete or average student at JMU gets to enjoy. But it's glad that you guys continue to grow this bond, because again, I think this type of engagement, this type of involvement is going to means something to the current players. Even if they don't understand it yet, they're going to understand it in a couple of years once their playing days are gone. And hopefully we continue to bring that bond closer to them. And maybe that type of culture that's developed keeps more players in Harrisonburg for longer. I know that, as you said, Harry, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I do think it is important to continue to remind everyone out there there's a lot more than what happens on the field and what happens in the short term. And those bonds, having one connection to a program of the long time is pretty special. I know it's brought you, Harry, closer to a lot of fans. And I hope that type of long-term commitment doesn't become just something of the past. And we see players continue to commit to this program for the long haul. But any final thoughts, guys, before we let you go?
I would just say that what you guys are doing is really a great addition to our efforts, because communication is a big part of this. Getting the word out on what we're doing and what we're building is important. So we really, what you guys are doing is great.
Yeah, you guys crush it. It's awesome. Keep it up. I love it. Love coming back, being invited onto this, and speaking a few words. But keep it up, and thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
And if anybody in the Richmond area needs a house, Harry, how can they find you?
That's right. My number, should I share on this? Yeah, why not? 540-421.
Why not? No one's who's going to text you, Harry? Come on, put it out there.
Yeah.
Maybe start with your email, Harry.
Real estate, buy or sell in Richmond, Virginia, Central Virginia. Give me a call. Give me an email. I'm happy to help. Love helping fellow Dukes. It's always good fun.
Awesome.
Are you on any park benches yet, Harry?
I live on a park bench.
Neil, what's the website for the Football Alumni Group if anybody wants to learn more about it?
It is JMU Alumni Football.com.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you soon, Harry, no doubt. Go drink some more water.
Yeah, I will.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Good night. Great discussion, as always, with those two gentlemen and then Harry O'Kelly. Always a loss for words. And finally, we're going to bring on our last guest. Somebody, if you were on Twitter specifically, you've probably seen a lot of his work recently. Cody Carter, team from Rocktown Graphics. Cody, wanted to get you on for a while because have just really been taken back by some of the awesome work that you're doing. Just to really bring the brand of JMU football and JMU athletics out there to more people, make it more accessible with a unique style that you bring to your design. Before we get into what you're doing with some of the players, just give people an insight into who you are and your background and how you came to start to design these great things we're all seeing on social media. And some of us actually have a physical product of your design, and we'll talk about that in a little minute.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thanks for you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to see what you guys do. It's been awesome so far. So you guys keep up the good work. So a little bit about me. I've spent the last about 10 years of my life as a first responder, a little bit of time as a firefighter, and a little bit of time as a sheriff's deputy. And over time, I've always been a big sports guy. I grew up watching sports, grew up playing sports. I grew up here in the Valley, and JMU has always been kind of part of my family. I married into a big JMU family. I've had grandparents that went to school there. My mom grew up here in Harrisonburg, so it's kind of always been part of me. So it wasn't a coincidence that my love for sports and then my love for sports cards kind of led me into the direction where I'm at now. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've really dug into learning about graphic design, watching videos, practicing it, and even with the videos. And that's where I'm at now. And it's cool because the sports cards, to me, when you look at them, all it is to design a sport. It's a graphic design in your hand. So it's cool to see your work actually transfer into actual something physical. So it's with the Jalen Green card. That's just the cool thing about that.
So I'm somebody who's collected sports cards my whole life. As a kid, I had giant boxes full and binders full of cards. So when I started to see you do these actual cards, it was awesome, especially because I had never thought I would see a JMU football card, a team that I'm so passionate about, to have those designs. Give us a little bit of insight, though, into how you started working with some of the current players that are on the roster and some of the former players. I know you've already mentioned the Jalen Green experience. Speak to that aspect specifically, and what has been the reaction from the players who have now getting a chance to maybe live out a dream and see themselves on a card and actually get to physically and tangibly hold one and share them around and stuff. It's got to be a pretty awesome experience for them.
Yeah, it is really cool. So, the first one I ever did was for Phoenix Sproles, and because Phoenix is an awesome guy, and I just reached out to him one day and said, "Hey man, I have this idea. It's based off of the Panini Kaboom card, and I want to use you as the model. Can I have some pictures? Can I use you as pretty much my first card I'm going to make?" And he was just so excited about it, and it was even more cool to be able to actually get a few demos printed to see how it would turn out and give them to him. And from there, I built a relationship with him, and it just kind of blossomed as he would tell the guys on the team about it. So I got to know a few more guys. Q Reed, I made one for him, and he absolutely loved it. So it was that's where it kind of started from. And then as time passed, I got to meet more people, and it kind of opened up more avenues for me to do more stuff. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm lucky enough to where I've gotten where I would never think where I'm at now, where I would have been a few months ago, where I'm at now. And I'm lucky that I am. And it's so cool to see how tight of a community and how tight these players are with each other, because that's why I've gotten to where I'm at. These players talk about the stuff that they see and talk about the stuff they get, and word of mouth throughout the team. And it's opened up more opportunities with more players, and up to the point to now where I've been asked to do a little freelance work for the team, and with the recruiting. So it's super cool. And I would have never thought that this kind of opportunity would have been able to be given to me.
Cody, first off, before I ask my question, shout out to you for that awesome banner you put on my Twitter account there with Sound Off podcast. I think my appearance on game day. Love what you're doing, man. Like you hit it earlier. You said recruiting. Recruits love this stuff. I remember 10 years ago when this started coming out. Like now, graphic designer or sort of like visual, consultant is now like an actual title on a coaching staff. You need people to have these graphic designs out for recruits. So really awesome work. Love what you're doing. We were talking offline before we hopped on that, we met each other at the Coastal game this past fall. You tapped my shoulder. We got to chatting a little bit, and it was so cool to like see sort of like the fandom of JMU grow over the years. And you mentioned, the name that you and I talked about the most was Sam Daniels, who is now our D-line coach and was an all-conference player back in 2009. It happened to be my sophomore year. I think you know him personally. As much as I've been very much, all about the program, I went away to DC for a couple of years. I'm a little bit closer now in Crozet, but you've been, I think, in Harrisonburg pretty much like the last 10 to 15 years watching this program sort of rise locally. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about sort of the impact of JMU football, JMU athletics with the local community, and so much as maybe how much of the community has embraced sort of this program, and like how can we make it even more of the Valley's team and really push that brand here going forward.
It's been super cool to see the growth of this program through the last few years. To just imagine where it was at. I mean, one of two programs to start from triple A, or what was it, Division III, other than Central Florida, and make us all the way up to where they're at now. So the program's growing so fast, and right now I feel like it's a hot time for JMU with basketball, with lacrosse, with the football team, with everything that's going on. It's the time to kind of grab it and just and run with it. And I feel like some of the stuff that I've been able to do, especially with the cards, and like with Jalen's card, it was, I grabbed the bull by the horns and just went with it. And I think that's part to do with the growth of this school and this team in the Valley. And it's people here in this city love the school, and I mean, everybody's got ties and connections to it. I've just, like I said earlier, I've been lucky to be placed and meet people that, you know, have been part of this football program. Sam lived next to me for 3 or 4 years, and I mean, him and his wife are awesome. They're two girls. The great neighbors. I hated seeing them leave, but I'm super excited. Like it was the day that the tweet went out that Sam was possibly coming back was the same day of the bowl game. So, you know, you're a little upset and depressed about the bowl game and how it turned out. And I was looking at my phone and I saw the tweet from I don't remember who it was now, and it said that there's a possibility that Sam would be coming back. And I took a screenshot of it and sent it to him. I was like, what is this? So it cheered me up for even with the loss. It kind of made the day a little bit better. But because of stuff like that, because of the relationships I've built, I've gotten to see and do things that have been pretty awesome. I never thought I would get to do, but this community loves JMU, and you can definitely tell everywhere you go, everybody is, you know, committed to this school, and it's awesome.
So we talk about a lot about sort of the JMU fandom growing, and what I loved hearing from you is it sounds like you've married into sort of like the JMU way, the JMU legacy. And I love that because, you know, as much as we talk about how much we love it, right? JMU is still in its infancy, right? In terms of its legacy, the history of especially football. Tell us what that experience been like. You know, I'm assuming you're around some fans, like some people that truly bleed purple and gold. Like, what's that experience been like for you?
So to kind of go back to the beginning, I guess my mom's from Harrisonburg, and my grandparents lived here off of Port off of Main Street for years. There's a little white house that sits right there near the intersection of Port and Main, and they lived there for years. And I tell people, when people ask how long I've been a JMU fan, I tell them that I remember as a kid walking over top of the hill, walking down the backside with the 2 concrete bleachers and walking into the game for free at halftime. I mean, that's how long ago it was. So it's always been part of my family, and I think it kind of comes from my grandfather because of them living here and him taking me to the games. And then I was lucky enough to, when I met my wife, that, you know, all her family went to school there. They've been season ticket holders for I don't remember even how many years now. So I got lucky with that. You know, it's super cool that, you know, everybody that surrounds me is part of this. And being somebody who didn't get the opportunity to go to JMU, it's cool because I feel welcomed in the JMU community, even just as not an alum, but just a fan.
Well, the great thing about tonight, I think, and I don't know if you thought about this at all, Cody, but with Neil on with the JMU Football Alum Group, I'm wondering if it makes sense, and maybe you've thought about this, to really connect with him and with Harry and those guys, and maybe do some cards for the alumni. And I think that might help in a lot of different ways. I think honoring them with a card, you know, the Rodney Landers card, the Justin Riscotti card, you know, the Alvin Banks card, there's Curtis Keaton. There's so many, you know, people we could go through, and I'm missing, you know, thousands of other guys. Is that something that you're thinking about, or is it something that's on the horizon?
So it's really cool that you bring that up. So I give a shout out to Collegiate Customs, because they have been kind of the go-between between me and the university, and they're the ones that kind of helped get this whole Jalen Green card off and running. With the card doing so well at the bookstore last weekend, and the idea of continuing this, we've been kind of running through and running some rough drafts and running some numbers of possibly having a printed set to be able to sell. We're still in the super early stages of it. The designs and stuff like that are still, we've looked at a few different ones trying to figure out what we would do, but I think it would be super cool to people who really understand sports cards and kind of get where when you buy cards from a hobby box or a blaster box, you know, you buy a card that has everything from 5 to 15 cards in the pack, and they have different kinds of cards. You have your base cards, you have your inserts, you have your parallels, you have your case hits, you have all these different kind of cards. But it's cool because of the variety of different kind of cards that are out there, we'll be able to do something like that. You throw your, top name players in there, and then you throw a different kind of design, and like an older throwback kind of design, and you put guys like Landry or Keaton or, Sam, but they're these guys that have, in the past that would be big prominent names, and throw them on some cards, and it's cool because like those guys would have loved when they were in school to have their own card. And I think the opportunity is there. We're flirting with it, and I really hope that we can do it.
I just have to shout out the comment on the screen from Jared Sherman saying he's waiting for that lobster mascot relic concession stand card, because if that's out there, I have a feeling we could make a huge contribution to the Montpelier Collective if that goes on sale. And of course, you got to have a Harry O'Kelly card.
Yes, definitely.
I know Zach Price will buy that for sure. And please make a Cole Johnson card just so we can all get Zach Price a Christmas present. If for those who know Zach Price, he will love that card. But Cody, seriously,
have a baby giraffe in the top.
Yeah, it's gotta have. Yeah, it's got a nickname, baby giraffe, underneath it. Cody, seriously, thanks, man, for what you're doing. What I admire about you is we've talked a lot, and others have as well. We're kind of in a golden era of access for fans for JMU. There's a number of great podcasts and discussions out there. There's more coverage of this program than ever. But what you're doing is a really unique way of paying homage to the players who have made amazing commitments to this department. I know this is going to grow, but it's going to grow because of your talent and your passion. And it's just going to give another outlet for us to build that connective tissue again between the fans and the players. And I think this, when you add it to the video game that's coming out this year, just a lot more ways for players to have their voice and their face out there. That's definitely one of the benefits of the NIL era. And there are some downsides to it, but one of the good sides is now players can capitalize on their brands, have some fun with it, and show their creative side. And they're getting to work with you to do that. And I think it's awesome. So congratulations. Final thought for me, how can people find you and learn more about what you're doing? And if they can stay tuned to maybe what's coming next as you work through the next couple of months in your increased partnership with JMU.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. My Twitter is Rocktown Cards, and it's Rocktown Graphic Designs on Instagram. Anybody can follow me on there if anybody wants any work done or wants any of their own cards printed for their kids or even for themselves of when they played anywhere. Just reach out to me. We can figure it out, make it work. Those are probably the best two places to find my stuff, and hopefully you guys can get to see some of my stuff on JMU's pages.
Awesome. Thanks, Cody. We'll talk soon, and trust me, we'll be fans of what you're doing in the future, and we'll definitely continue to buy the stuff. It's great stuff all around, and thanks for what you're doing for these players. But we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, and with that, we're going to go to our final thoughts segment. Guys, the one thing that's out there this week that made a lot of attention online on the roster front was the movement of D'Angelo Pons into the transfer portal. One of those guys that, let's just be honest, is a huge loss for this defense. A player who, as many have described, as a shutdown corner who was really growing into his own. I'll start with you, Michael, of what this loss means to this defense, but more importantly, where does this coaching staff go now? We've seen already on Twitter and in other places there have been some offers made to some corners around the country as this staff tries to shore up the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I was going to say, think about ways to answer this question without the emotional aspect of it, right? Like the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. You know what I mean? So, portal goes both ways. And I think when you look at the corner room, we got Chauncey Logan on one side, we had Pons, but we also had All-American Terrence Spence coming in from Holy Cross, right? Like this guy, the Holy Cross DBs last year were great. They were all first team Patriot. I think the other one was like considered as All-American as well. I think he's potentially an undrafted free agent in the draft as well for NFL. Like, Spence decided to come here, right, versus opting for the draft. And so I think that speaks a lot about him. So all in all, there's an emotional aspect to it, right? It's Pons. He was homegrown. He was a freshman All-American. Kind of give us some Jimmy memories as well, because he was from the Miami, Florida area. But, I'm confident in this stuff. We've offered some really high quality FCS All-Americans as well. Like there's an Indiana State corner that we've offered. There's a couple other guys that we've offered as well that have had played, considerable college football. But at the end of the day, right, the corner is only as good as who you have up front. And I think the D-line looked really good during the spring game, so I'm excited to see what they can do. And we saw the impact of having a good defensive line with a young secondary the last couple of years. I'm assuming we'll capitalize on that as well.
Steve, any thoughts on the move or any other aspect coming out of the spring game? Because there's been some roster management moves, some players that were depth players that have gone into the portal now. But this is something that was not unexpected, as we've seen every year after spring game. There always is some movement. But any movement that happens also brings on the opportunity of some additional guys coming in to fill some needs. Now that this staff has had a full spring training session to see what exactly this roster has and where there might be some holes.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, you're missing out on a very special place if you leave. And you can go. It's okay. I mean, you're just getting something now that we see in business. I hire people, some people leave, they think it's going to be greener when they go, and it's not. And that's okay. And, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm disappointed, but at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to seeing the next guy up because there's so much talent on this team. It's not about one player. It's never about one player. It's not about 10 players. This is a team effort. So if you want to go, go. If you think it's better somewhere else, okay. But as Neil said, you will not be welcomed in as a football alum of JMU. If you don't finish your career at JMU, you're losing out on the special part of this. And that's a shame for you because there's much more to just playing football, to getting your degree at JMU. And it's all well and good. So I was very pleased with what I saw at the spring game, very happy with where I've seen the coaching staff take this team so far. Looking forward to what they're going to do in summer workouts, looking forward to having more of the players on over the summer, which we will, and just hearing about, a number of things that are going on in the program. So, very excited for the program, not depressed, bit angry, but I'll direct my anger at someone else and I won't do it on the podcast. But it aggravates me that
I think we lost Steve again. Michael, my last question for you though is any takeaways from spring practice, the spring game that you saw in terms of maybe questions you had going into the spring about where this roster would be, considering we did lose a substantial amount of our contributors from last season. There are a lot of new players in key roles, especially at the quarterback position, a rebuilt running back room. Just maybe your high-level takeaways for what you saw on the field.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to sound like an old man talking about this, but I really love the continuity and stability on the offensive line. We've got a number of players that played considerable snaps for us still in, and really dominate up front. I think the first team did a really good job. But second to that is I think we've got some horses out on the outside. I think we're sort of underplaying, and we saw it last year when we had Surratt and other guys come in. The wide receiver room was a little bit of an unknown. I think we've got some of that going into the fall versus Charlotte, which is probably good for us. But seeing guys like Cam Ross, Max Moss, a healthy Taji Hudson, Troy Lewis from ECU as well, guys that we haven't seen before. Taylor Thompson, by the way, tight end from Charlotte last year, gained about 25 pounds, more of a receiving threat, be really on the field. Josh Pfeiffer. I think we can be very potent on the outside. And we talked about this early in the running back room. Petaway and Ao Adeyi are going to be a problem. You have big, athletic, thick offensive linemen, and you have powerful, explosive running backs with a quarterback that has seen everything under the sun in college football. And you have an offensive coordinator that loves putting players in space. That's a very dangerous combination for Sunbelt defenders. Just letting your athletes be athletes, right, and go out there and dominate. So I really like that fact. And going back to Steve's point, Steve, I think you got cut out. And I tweeted about this, and I'm going to only say so much, but the logic of potential P5 coaches to beat other P5 programs by taking our players is very interesting. I think it's a testament to the development and the identification of talent here at JMU. But taking the emotional part out of it, it is very frustrating, like Steve had mentioned. And we'll get over it, and we'll be fine, and we're gonna do well going forward.
Yeah, well, you want to burn a bridge, you've burnt one, and I won't be there for you. And you know who I'm talking to out there. And there'll be a time you're going to need support, and you're not going to get it. So I'm just going to leave it at that and let folks know that we're loaded and we've got next guy up. You didn't know who D'Angelo Pons was last year. You didn't have any idea. There's somebody sitting on that roster right now that's ready to step into that role. I'm not concerned at all about that because that's what the game is. The game is next guy up. He could have gotten hurt. So I'm perfectly happy with who we have. Love the coaches, love the players. And when you're here, we're going to love you. And at the end of the day, we're looking forward to seeing you. So can't wait to watch to see what this team does. You give Bob Chesney and crew and those guys another couple months. They look pretty damn good last Saturday. I wouldn't want to play us. So looking forward to rolling these guys we're going to see in this fall. Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned. There'll be some additional, guys coming in or probably over the weeks to come that will fill out this roster. And then remember, to those who are at the spring game, there were a number of players who were going to probably be key contributors who weren't at spring practice this year because they were still, finishing up their studies at other institutions. We have an offensive line and coming in from Campbell, as you mentioned, Michael, a defensive back from an All-American coming from Holy Cross. So lots of different players will be in this locker room in August for the full camp. That will be key contributors in the fall, and that's the ones that we know about. The ones that will likely sign over the days to come will only add to that group, and that's in addition to what's happening on the basketball side. There's been a lot of roster movement as well as Coach P continues to fill out the men's basketball roster. We've had some additions as well on the women's side, so both of those rosters, getting set for what they're going to look like in the fall. I'm really impressed with Coach P has done on the basketball side, bringing in some size. The first time in a while, we're going to have two big men that are going to be able to do some damage in the Sun Belt. Bringing a Syracuse transfer who is from Central Virginia, who should play a lot key minutes for this team, as well as joining Xavier Brown, who remains on this roster. So lots to like in the basketball as well. But guys, that will do it for tonight's episode. As always, appreciate you spending some time with us. As to our guests, as always, thanks for joining the discussion. We had a really great conversation with all of them tonight. Really appreciate each of their contributions to JMU Athletics. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Montpelier Collectives, Skyline Financial, Where's Woody, and Talent Corp, our newest sponsor. And with that, we'll see you guys soon. JMU Sound Off. Go Dukes.